Education, meeting at 280 West, 940 North in Provo, Utah. And we're going to begin with a roll call. And Melanie, let's start with you.
Melanie Hall, board member.
Emily Harrison, board member.
Meg Van Wagenen, board member.
Wendy Dow, superintendent.
Jennifer Partridge, board president.
Gina Hales, board vice president.
Terry McCabe, board member.
Lisa Boyce, board member.
Devin Daly, business administrator.
All right, do we have a motion to convene our business meeting?
I move that we convene our business meeting.
Okay, motion made by board member Hall. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second by board member Boyce. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now in our business meeting, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by our Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, Daryl Jensen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so on our agenda tonight, we are first going to start with a discussion about Wasatch Elementary Wall. Then we will have our county property tax error discussion, and after that will be the opportunity for public input. And so if you are here tonight to give public input, we have forms in the back that while we're doing the other things, you can go ahead and fill out one of those forms, and then you'll turn it in over here to our assistant, Bonnie, and then she'll make sure it gets up here that when that time comes, you'll be able to give your comments. Okay, so let's start with the Wasatch Elementary Wall discussion. And just kind of want to give a brief overview for our public who may not be fully aware of everything that's happening. So we opened the new Wasatch Elementary School in January, and then this spring, the retaining wall on the southwest corner, we noticed it was bulging and that we had a water issue. And so our contractors took down that southwest corner to relieve the pressure and to study what was going on and why the wall was not holding as it should. We've had contractors, engineers originally on it, plus we've brought in 2 other engineering or geotech companies to help us determine the problem and to figure out a solution. This last Thursday, those companies met with some of us at the district, and we talked through what the solution should be. They proposed that we have a blanket drain behind the wall, and the question is just how far do we extend that? And that became a long discussion in that meeting. And the answer we're at right now is that they're going to be doing some math to just double check, but the idea is to make sure that we mitigate all of the issues, and so we should extend the blanket drain all the way towards the north. That's more important, but also going towards the east as well. So today we were hoping to get some of those calculations and some of those numbers of what that would cost, and also just get that final proposal from IGES, the engineering company, but we do not have those yet, and so we do not have that. Once we have that information, then our other 2 second opinion parties will look that over and make sure that we all get on the same page, that we feel good about it. We recognize we want to take care of this for our students, for the community, but also we know the weather eventually is not going to be quite so pleasant, and it would be great to get it done before that, but we also are working hard to make sure we're doing this right so the wall stays forever, as long as we need it, right? So tonight, we're just going to discuss what does the board feel comfortable with as far as extending the drain and what we feel good about. So Devin, do you have anything else to add to that?
I think you you did a great job summarizing. That's where we are right now.
So, thoughts? This is the discussion portion. Go ahead, Lisa.
So am I right then that what we need are specific numbers, not just of the cost, which I think is a significant number for us to make sure we're hearing, but also of the engineering design piece of this, right? So that structurally we've mitigated as much risk as we can with the design of the new wall before we start. Is that right? So we don't have the number of the actual extension of that drain beyond the original proposal, and we don't have the numbers of the specific costs, right?
Correct.
That's right.
That should be coming at any time.
Okay. I mean, I personally, I don't want to authorize funding it until we know what they're asking us to fund, and also a little bit of clarity, if we can agree on it, in terms of who responsibility for some of the situation that we're in. That's my opinion.
Other thoughts, questions? Meg?
I mean, I think myself and many of us, right, it just is taking a long time to get to where we need to be with putting the wall back up. And I do think, I don't know if this will add to the discussion, but what you said, Jennifer, we're trying to make sure we're doing due diligence and doing it right, but also having a third party come in and help us also do their own assessment that's independent of anything that had happened at the site already, to understand kind of, I think, also how we got here, which has been just, I think, reiterating that has taken time. And I know I've been impatient about that myself at times, but don't want to rush this in the sense that we aren't able to make the best decisions moving forward. And I agree that I think it is, I'd rather decide with more numbers of what the cost is for the more extensive drains that need to be put in before we say we are ready to authorize that design. And we still are waiting for those to come in. And I think really, ideally we wanted to have them today, but we did meet, our last meeting with all of the interested parties was last Thursday. And so it was maybe a quick turnaround from Thursday to today, even though we were hopeful. So I know, I guess wanting to speak to it's like we're going to get an update and then it just kind of keeps feeling like it's being extended. And I knowing the process, know that's just part of making sure we're doing our due diligence and doing this right.
And we do have a regularly scheduled board meeting in a week, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that should hopefully be time to get those numbers in. Other thoughts or questions? Gina?
I think one of the main things we're deciding here is, do we want to extend that drain, which is the fix that has been, let's say tentatively, but really it's been, we need to extend the drain is what is kind of the conclusion I'm seeing. And I am in favor of extending the drain, whatever we need to do to make the school and the wall safe. And I would like to be clear that we don't want to shirk any duties that we have in paying for some of the things that need to happen. And at the same time, we need to make sure that we're safeguarding the taxpayer money that we are in charge of. And so I would like to give them the money they need to put the wall back up in a good time. And I do think that we will have enough time if we revisit this on our meeting next Tuesday to make sure that they have the money that they need, but also to make sure we have the numbers that we need to feel good about making it, voting on a decision like that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Melanie?
What if we were to just offer a smaller amount now to get this started? Like, say, $300,000 to get the project started?
And you're saying if we authorize that, before our next board meeting, plans come in, we know what between the three entities that yes, this is the right solution, that they're able to start before our next board meeting.
Right.
I don't know.
Lisa?
I just feel like it's Tuesday now. We meet again next Tuesday. personally, I don't want to authorize money towards this until we have agreed as a board on a design and a plan and what we're authorizing. I just feel like to me, that's a little too uncertain. And no, it's not that I don't want to solve this problem and that I don't understand that we will be part of that. I just would rather, personally, I would rather wait.
I totally agree with your point. Like, I don't want to slow anything down. Like, once we have everything, we want to move forward. But I do think since we don't have even the initial, like, here's what we're proposing, and then once we get that, we still need to have our other two parties look it over. I think they're going to need all of this week to do that. So I think waiting until next Tuesday won't really slow it down. So I think we're okay to wait without slowing it. That's my thought. Okay. Okay. Meg?
I think waiting. Reality is next week is our regularly scheduled board meeting anyway as well. So we can make the best decision then.
Okay. We do have it as a business item, and so when we get to that point, we can still have more discussion if anyone has any other thoughts about that. And then we can vote to move forward or vote to wait. So, all right, let's move to item E, which is our county property tax error discussion. And again, I just kind of wanted to give an overview of the property taxes. So every year, the county gives valuations on homes and businesses throughout the county. And then they set the rate for the property taxes. And the way it's designed is to bring in the same amount of money, and I'm just going to use the school district, since that's the entity we are, that we have set for our budget. And so if the valuations of the homes go up, our budget is the same as last year. Well, that's how it's set, to bring in the same as last year. And so the rate would go down because the values went up, right? And so our budget would not change. We do not automatically get more money just because values of homes and businesses went up. Then if the district wants to receive more money, then we go through a process called truth in taxation, where we let the community know that we do want to bring in more money, and we are adjusting the rate intentionally to bring in that extra revenue. This year we got the rates from the county, and after we received that information, then we did say, well, we do want to raise our salaries for our teachers and our administrators so that we can be more competitive with our neighboring districts. And so we did go through the truth and taxation process, which we had that final meeting just a few weeks ago. And at the time we thought, oh, well, this is great. It's not going to impact our community too much. There would be little to no impact for the average homeowner. Well, this Wednesday, we learned that the total valuation for Provo was incorrect when they determined our rates. So they thought there was more value within the city than there actually is. So even though the individual properties were valued correctly, it's as if some of them got double counted. And so if the error had not been corrected, or caught, I should say, and if it's not corrected, we will be, as a school district, $3.7 million short of what we have budgeted, what we thought we were going to be getting. And so, thankfully, it was caught with enough time. And I do want to say, like, this is an error that happened at the county. But I feel so bad for the employees at the county, because I know I'm sure it was not intentional, and they must all feel so bad about this happening, right? But it is what it is, and now we have options as to what we're going to do about it. And instead of me sharing those options, I think I'm going to turn it over to, we have Rod Mann here, who is our county auditor, right? Did I get that correct? And we appreciate you being willing to come and to speak to the board and as well as all the public that is watching. And you've got a presentation that you're going to share with us about that. Okay.
Okay, if
Go
you
ahead,
can
Rod.
just go
Thank
to
you.
the first slide after. So what happened was a clerical error was made, just as you described, and we added $530 million to Provo's taxable property value. That represents about 5% of your total value. And I wish I could say we had done it, given you 530 million less, because this would be a different discussion, a happier one, but it is that's what happened. So like you said, we gave you a lower rate than you should have had, and had we stayed with the rate, you would get $3.7 million less than what you deserve, or what you budgeted for. Provo City was impacted as well, and we met with them this morning, and their impact was $840,000 less. So next slide. So the certified tax rates given to you were about 5% less than they should have been. When we looked at how many people or entities are going to be impacted, there are 23,143 primary residential properties that will be impacted. And there are about 2,100 improved parcels, and those would be homes that are being used for like Airbnb or businesses. And for the homeowners, the impact on your portion of the problem for the average home in Provo is $81 for this year. And for businesses, for a $1 million business, not a $1 million business, a business that has $1 million worth of property, it's about $302. So the net impact for, well, you can see what it is. It is what it is. We spoke with Provo City. We're not sure what they're going to do. I can tell you, when we talked to the tax commission, because we found this out on a Thursday because one of your residents, Mike Rohn, pointed out that there was a discrepancy between what the assessor said the value was and what we said the value was. And after Bert double checked and he went, oh, whatever, he called me, and it was Friday evening, and we couldn't measure the impact. So then we talked to the tax commission the next day, state tax commission, and we've had one or more conversations with them a day sometimes since then. And what I can say, if you want to hit the next slide, this is just details around what I just talked about. Next slide is the solutions. There are two solutions. One is you can fix it this year, correct the problem, and you're just fixing something. You're just fixing a clerical error, so it's not a horrible thing. And if anybody wants to be mad, send them my way. I'm happy to do that. It was my space that happened. You guys are awesome. Appreciate all you do. Or you can wait till next year, and the commission will correct the rates so that you'll get your money from this year back, and you can do it over a 1-year time frame or a 3-year time frame. If you do nothing, then it'll be 3 years that it'll get amortized over, or if you ask them, they'll give it to you next year. So that means, in simple terms, for that average homeowner that was going to pay $83 this year, they would pay that $83 next year plus the $83 from this year. And it can be done as a one-time thing, or you could spread it out over 3 years. Now, the mistake we made isn't covered directly by law, and that was the challenge on determining what should we do. And even though it's not covered directly by law, the tax commission staff has looked at the law, and I agree with this assessment. They said the way the law is written, if you find an error before the tax bill goes out, you're supposed to fix it. If you find an error after, then this is how the tax commission is going to fix it for you. But because it's gray, they said entities can do what, you can, and so a lot of this was kind of my call. I talked with our commission, and the conclusion I came to was that if the margin of error in the certified tax rate, because you don't get exactly what you ask for, there is a margin of error. So if it's inside the margin of error of what can happen in a tax year, and there are exceptions, but if it's within the margin of error, we're just going to let it ride, and it'll get corrected automatically less next year, and it's really not, in percentage terms, it's not substantive. So Provo, however, you were outside the margin of error, you were 5%, and so we're giving you an option to fix it now or fix it later. You can do what you want. My personal view is, even though the law doesn't say exactly what we're supposed to do, that we should try and do what the intent of the law is. And I'm sure that the law will be corrected, right? Now, in our case, this error is never going to happen again because we know what happened. We're still wondering, how did this happen? Because the number changed in a spreadsheet. There were 7 numbers that changed out of about 60 before we uploaded it to the certified tax rate system. And we can't figure out how those numbers changed. So 7 cells, there's no pattern, but we're going to automate it so we don't have human intervention next year. So we fixed the problem. We got rid of humans on this one. But there are other opportunities for error that I'm sure somebody will discover eventually. This one isn't going to happen with us again. So their view was correct it this year. And in that case, what we would ask you to do is before the 15th, approve the new rate. We will send out a correction notice to all affected property owners and say, hey, an error was made. This is what happened. Here's what in the valuation notice we sent you. It wasn't a bill, it was a valuation notice. And actually on the bill it says estimate. So they recognize that there are issues. This is what we indicated you were going to pay. This is what your bill will actually end up being. And we'll also notice that because of the error, we're going to extend the valuation appeal deadline by 45 days after the notice goes out. That's statutory. We believe, again, this is gray. And the rate, when you appeal your value, it's the value, and the value that you got originally was correct. But the tax commission, some of the commissioners said, you know what, sometimes people don't appeal a value if it's not that much. But because you're making it more, we think it's fair that you would extend that deadline. So it's not going to change the nature of the appeal. If their value was correct, it's not going to be incorrect. But we are going to add that time window to it, and that will be on the notice as well. So, and we need time to prepare to do that. And if it's just Provo, and that's how we sorted it out, we can cover it with our budget. We don't have to go back to the commission and say, open up the budget again, which is a 2 or 3 week process to approve it. So with just Provo doing it, we can fund it out of our current budget. We can do it. We can have that notice out before the end of September so people will know a month ahead of time that, okay, they're going to be impacted by, $80, $100, whatever it is, and they can just plan for it. I talked to a lady about an hour ago that was super mad until I talked to her, and then she just wanted to vent, and she wanted to vent about all kinds of things that had nothing to do with the school, but my utility bill is too high, and then when we talked about it, I said, well, we can fix it now or fix it later. She said, you should fix it now. And her impact was going to be $50 or less. So she had a lower value home. She's an older lady on fixed income. But it ended up being very pleasant. And her view was, you got to fix it now. So that's my opinion. If we go the other route, what happens is The tax commission will look at the discrepancy between what was budgeted and what was actually collected. We won't know that till after March of next year. That's when we close the books on tax collections for 2025. And then they will make an adjustment. And like I said, it can be a one-time or over 3 years. And then your new certified rate will reflect that. Those are your choices. I have the state statute that talks about how that's listed there. That's a live link, so if you click on it, it'll go somewhere. You still have to interpret it, but it'll go somewhere. And that's, any questions?
Yeah, I was gonna, if anyone has questions for Rod, I also forgot to mention we have Bert Harvey, our tax administrative manager.
Yes,
is here. Thank you. And so questions for them or Devin, while you're thinking of your questions, I just wanted to let our audience know, for those who just came in, after this discussion will be the opportunity for public comment. If you would like to give public comment, we have forms in the back that you can fill out right now, and then you'll turn them in to Bonnie, our assistant over here, so that when it's time for public comment, we've got those ready to go. So, okay, board members, what question do you have?
Can I clarify one thing?
Devin,
with
go for
Rod?
it, please.
Since we've already done, this is not another truth in taxation, because
Correct.
we've already done it.
And
It's just we need to approve the current rate as.
Correct, and we talked
That's
with the
what
tax commission about that. Because it's a correction, you just have to adopt a resolution with the new rates. No public hearings required. You just need to have it on agenda, pass the rate. It's a correction. We're fixing a problem.
Just to clarify, sorry, if I can add some further clarification. Yes, that the school board has already met all the requirements they needed to increase their ad valorem tax revenue this year. This is not a correction to that. This is a correction to the certified rate. So correct. This is a correction to the base revenue amount and the base rate that you based your decision to do truth in taxation on top of. So this is essentially bringing it back up to what it should have been in the first place, regardless of whether you had done truth in taxation or not.
Correct. And to clarify that for public is, even if we had not done truth in taxation, we would still be short this amount of revenue.
Correct.
So.
And we would be having the same conversation with the same dollar amounts.
Correct.
And the same impact on a residential. Yes.
I guess the one caveat to that being that when we made a decision around the rate increase, we would decide on for our truth in taxation process, we were significantly impacted by looking at first the rate we got from the county.
Correct.
Right. So in determining like what is a reasonable ask from our taxpayers based on this rate, then we went through a truth in taxation process. So to change that base rate, it does make me rethink the process that we had, just because then it's a different ask of our taxpayer than even if this adjustment were being made on its own. I do think our truth in taxation process was impacted by the rate we had at the time when we made the decision of what that rate increase should look like.
Yeah, we can't take it back to zero.
And so do we have the ability, I guess I don't even know that, to go back into a truth in taxation process and change the amount that we added
I don't
onto the
believe so.
base rate?
You don't. Your choices are take the correction or not.
Decrease the, when we're
Oh, you can decrease.
correct.
But could you decrease and increase, and is that called a decrease? That's what I'm wondering, right?
So when we do a truth in taxation, when we vote on it, you can set a rate lower than what we stated in the notice, but not anything higher.
Okay.
Now, and that's based on the dollar amount of revenue. So we don't actually, the truth in taxation is for a dollar amount increase, not a
rate
rate at that time.
Right.
So
So,
that's the
and your
reason-
budget was the budget you approved. Typically, when you adopt the rate in June or not, but if you adopt the rate in June, you say, we're adopting this rate to get this budget because we want this much money. So half of the equation was wrong. The budget is still what you adopted. And the truth in taxation budget that you adopted, that's what you adopted. We're just saying to get your original, had you not done truth in taxation, this correction would have needed to be made. And now to do the other But there isn't an opportunity to do truth and taxation here because that window's expired. And
I
the
just
tax
wanted-
commission, in the end, controls, yes.
And the only difference to that is, so our revenue will be lower than it would have been because of the basic rate. The basic rate is set by the state, so we won't recover those dollars, but that money should be made up with the WPU, because that's the money that they look at our property tax collections versus what we were supposed to receive, and that difference is what that state support will be. So that could go up a little bit based on what our final collections are.
Melanie?
I just wanted to piggyback on what Lisa was saying, though, that I feel like had we had the correct information, maybe our discussions for truth and taxation would have been different. Is that what you're saying, Lisa?
That's what I'm trying to
Yes,
think.
and fair point. The law is what it is, so
Yep. Yeah, because we did ask for more for our teacher salaries, right? So
Correct.
had we not done that, then everyone would have gone, oh, my bill's lower, amazing, and then we would have said, oh, wait, no, not
Right.
actually. But now it is going to go higher than what it has been because we're bringing in more revenue for salaries. So, Emily? Was it Emily?
Meg.
Oh, Meg. Go ahead, Meg.
Yeah, I mean, listening to Lisa and Melanie, I agree that, I think the conversation would have been different, but I am keeping in mind that it's not that we want this increase. We do need it. I guess I can speak for myself in that continuing to work on our teacher salaries, our administrators, our salaries across the district is important for our school district and being a place where people want to come work and be. So I agree that it would have changed the discussion, but I don't know if it would have changed what our needs are.
Correct.
If that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, other questions for Rod or Bert before I let Rod sit down?
I just want to say thank you for coming. It's
thank you for
very
having us.
nice of you to come. I'm sure I know when I make mistakes, I don't want people pointing it out. And you came and explained things. I really, really appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you for having us. Yes, Lisa.
And I just wanted to ask this because this is a question that I keep getting through emails and in conversations for the last couple of days. You mentioned, people keep saying, well, how can we feel that this won't happen? It's a mistake, but it's almost $1 billion, right? And so what safeguards will we have in place so that if the spreadsheet, I heard you say it would be automated, but what people, like I said that to someone and they laughed at me and I didn't know. I was like, well, I'm not saying they're just going to automate it and not check it. So can you just speak to
Yes,
that so
and
that
I'll
people listening can hear you answer that?
Yeah, this is.
And I'm not trying to be disrespectful
No,
at all.
absolutely, yeah.
I need to know so that I can represent this correctly.
That's a very important question. That's the question. That's the first thing. That's one of the first things we started talking about when we identified the error. Just so you understand how this happens, in order to establish the tax rates for every entity in the county, we have to take the data that is within our own assessment system. We have to move that. I have to take that and put that into a report, normalize the data, make the adjustments for Provo. Obviously, that includes making adjustments for redevelopment area value, and then normalize that into a way that can then be uploaded in the certified tax rate system. This error happened because it's that transfer from one data source onto the working document. There was a mistake made. I cannot find where the error happens. I can't find the report that we used that caused the data. I can't find the problem. But even though I can't explain how the problem happened, we can automate that process so that simple transfer is not a problem in the future. We can easily build a report, which, obviously maybe we should have done that before now, but, it's such a small thing. And it's one of those, it's kind of like, when you turn on your tap and you want the water to come out and it comes out and it doesn't come out and then you realize that's a problem. This is one of those small things that is a big problem that you don't realize how big a problem is until it becomes a problem. So the solution is that we automate that process. Within our own system, we program the ability of the system of our valuation, our land record system to output a report that does all those calculations already. So that I and those of us that work on these values go from a a way of creating the values to simply verifying that the information is correct. So that when the data comes out, I can go back and double check against the source. And instead of making sure all my formulas are correct, all I'm doing is making sure that the values are correct. And that was the gap that happened this time.
Well, and I mean, speaking then to that checking part, right? Because I see that has now eliminated one opportunity for error in the system, right? But what does that check look like in terms of, I guess figuring out that something doesn't match, for example.
Right.
So someone did figure that out, and I'm just wondering, like, is there a system now that will be audited, for example, that says, this is how we check to make sure?
Well, and typically it is audited. That's the thing that failed this year, and I can go back to say, okay, there's these things that resulted in that. There was the death of my family and all kinds of stuff like that. But it doesn't come down to the fact that there was a step that was missed, and there usually is a double check. I usually do have someone that helps us double check the data, and that was missed. So from a process standpoint, one of the things that we're going to implement next year is working with the assessor's office to double check the data, just to make sure the numbers all match.
Okay.
And not only automating the report, but also making sure that there's a two-person, whether that's me and the assessor, or even just me and Rod, just going through, looking at both reports, going, okay, everything numbers. And it literally is a very simple, it was literally a very simple data transfer error. And that's what's the frustrating part about this is, and the reason I spent a lot of time trying to figure out where the data error happened. If you told me, I've been jokingly saying this, but this still feels relatively true. If you told me the Chinese hackers hacked my laptop and changed the numbers, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. It is literally that strange of an error. So, and has never happened before. It will never happen again, but it did happen this year. So,
and to address also, Bert and I have had many conversations over the last few days, but there will also be hopefully the ability for districts and for cities to be able to verify the information for their entity themselves as well. So there is that additional part where we can go and make sure that the data actually makes sense with what we're seeing. So that's an additional safeguard to be able to make sure that information, so that he has help. I mean, that's.
Thank you, Devin. And that's a good point. That's actually something that's been on our IT to-do list, was to give entities the ability to log into a place within the county and download their data. Which I get requests all the time from city administrators and other people that have to deal with evaluation data, like, hey, send me a report of this. Well, this has been on our project. Guess we get to bump this up to the top of the project list. So, thank you.
Now, Bert generates those reports and gives it to him, but this means he'll have less things to do.
I have a question. Bonnie, can you go back to the details slide? So if I'm reading this correctly, this first value, rate, and budget was what we were originally going to do.
Yeah,
Second value, rate, and budget, and the red number is stake.
Right, so that's with the corrected value and the same rate.
And the value, rate, budget, and numbers that's what's being fixed, and so we're still 681,000.
That's the basic rate. That's the basic rate that the state sets. That's that difference.
Okay.
So that one we can't change.
Yep.
And evidently there's other mechanisms to fix that. But regardless, the tax commission can address a shortfall like that when they do corrections next year. And that level of shortfall is like a fifth of what the whole thing is. So divide by 5, and that's roughly kind of correction you would have next year.
Okay. And I agree with Lisa. I hope the processes have been put in place. We cannot rely on Mike Rohn forever.
Well,
even though he does a great job.
Yes, well, and good for him for catching it. It's one of those things, at least we have an opportunity, like if you weren't going to fix it, you could start saying, oh, this is how we're going to plan for that gap.
Yes.
And I do want to just say for the public's sake too, and this isn't necessarily a question for you, but just, I want the public to know that we are and have been continually examining programs and looking at efficiencies of our buildings, looking at outcomes of programs that we have, and trying and succeeding at reducing our costs. So when we made these decisions, we were looking at factors such as the rates set by the county, the needs of our teachers, things we were looking at in terms of, our insurance increases, et cetera, to walk a line of what was a reasonable ask while still meeting the needs of our district. And it's not that we wait and hear how much money we get and then we just decide how to spend it. We actually created a really thoughtful and really responsible budget, and then decided based on the rate what, when, and how we wanted to be able to pay our teachers more this year.
Thank you, Lisa. Rod and Bert, thank you so much for being here. I'll let you sit down.
Okay.
That doesn't mean we're done with the discussion. I think what I would like to do, though, is hear from the public, those who are here to give comment, and then we can go to our business items and we can continue this discussion when we get to this business item. But I know Meg is going to have to leave for a funeral in a few minutes. So is there anything you wanted to say about this item since you won't be here for the vote?
I think, yeah, all of us are feeling this is unfortunate, right, that we're in this situation. But I do, having all the information, I just want to say that I do think to move forward, I think correcting the mistake now is how I would vote if we've taken a vote tonight.
Okay.
Can I say that?
You can say anything you want to say about it. So yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now go to our public input portion of the meeting. And for those who just recently arrived, there are forms in the back. If you do want to give public comment, please fill it out and turn it in over here. Right now I have one person for public comment. And so when I call you up, if you'll just say your name and the elementary boundary in which you live, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak. So Aaron Wheatley.
My name is Aaron Wheatley. I live in the Provo Peaks boundary. Can I ask a question? Because I had to walk out when my kids were to go to the bathroom. Like, am I allowed to ask questions, or is it just comment?
You can ask the question. We can't necessarily answer it right away, but we can probably get to it in our discussion later.
That's cool, because I'm interested. So, like I said, I missed this part, but I saw your video on Facebook and was interested by that. Thanks for putting that up, first of all. I thought that was really nice. Good way to inform us. You talked about like using rainy day fund, or you called it like the fund or something. I can't remember exactly what you called it, but I guess my question for later is like, what is that supposed to be used for? Why do we have a rainy day fund? What would trigger it? What would be good? That being said, I don't think we should use it now. I guess it is my comment. There's been some things in the past that have happened, right, where the taxpayers, I think that's so funny because you guys are all taxpayers too, so I don't know why we're fighting against you. We're all taxpayers here. Anyway, we reject certain things and then come to find out that the situation is much worse than we had anticipated, and we end up having to pay a lot more money than if we would have just approved it in the first place. And that's my concern here, not necessarily about paying more money, but the principle behind it, something I've been taught my whole life. I grew up here in Provo as well, graduated from Timpview High School, right? But kind of the principle of why are we putting off to do later what we can do now? Why don't we just do it now and make things better for the future? Why are we planning on, okay, next year, the next 3 years, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe it's a lot worse situation. And if it's better, great. That's awesome. But why aren't we taking advantage of the situation we have right now and doing all we can to make it better now? So that's my input. Like I said, is no one wants to pay an extra $100. I think I saw someplace 106, 88. I don't know. I've seen a bunch of stuff, but we're not talking thousands of dollars, tens of thousands per person. We're talking $100. Not fun. I definitely don't want to spend an extra $100. But in the grand scheme of things, if I can pay it now and I don't have to pay it later, that seems so much better to me. Like I said, the principle behind it, I'm saddened, I guess, sometimes by the reluctance of also myself. I've been there too, but of investing in the future. I have 2 young kids, as you can see. I want the future to be better, maybe smoother, even easier for them so they can take the next step as well. So that's what I would encourage you as a board to think about and reflect on when you make these decisions. We trust you to make these decisions. If you think something's different, okay, like I said, I trust you to make that decision, but I want you to keep that in mind. Why are we putting off something if we can do it now? Why don't we set that example and show people, okay, let's do it today. Why wait till tomorrow to do today's work? So that's my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Wheatley. All right. Okay, next we have Rachel Breen.
Hello, my name is Rachel Breen, and I live in the Westridge boundary. And just like this gentleman, I don't like kicking the can. I'd like to see this taken care of this year. I understand that mistakes happen. I appreciate the county being so open about this. I really appreciate the school district. Jennifer Partridge's video about how property taxes are done is the first time I understood how my property taxes were done, so I really appreciated that. And I understand that when I get that notice in the mail, that's an estimate. I don't hang on to that and I look at it as that is what I'm going to pay. I understand that's an estimate, and so to me, I don't feel like it's that big of a deal. I understand mistakes happen. I would rather we not dip into the rainy day fund because you never know when a boiler is going to break or something's going to happen. I'd like to have those funds to stay there for something that I feel like he was saying, not thousands of dollars, probably just about $100 for the average homeowner. So I'd like to see this taken care of this year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Breen. All right, is there anyone else here to give public comment? Okay, we will close our public input portion of the meeting then, and we will move to our business items. And first is a large purchase request for the Wasatch Elementary School wall. Based on our earlier discussion, I don't know if we're ready to move forward on anything, but do we have a motion?
I move that we table the approval process for expenditures for the Wasatch Elementary School wall until we have both a design for that wall that has been checked by our independent geotechnical contractor, as well as the cost of that wall.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Board Member Boyce, second by Board Member McCabe. Do we have any more discussion on that motion?
I just want to say thank you to all of the people that are working to be really thorough in this process. I know it is frustrating. I know we also have the pressure of making sure that we're fixing things before the weather turns, but it's not fixing it to just rebuild that wall before we know how we got here and what we need to do. And I'm grateful for the data that's come in and the progress that's been made. And I really do look forward to working with people to get this repaired correctly.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and take a vote on the motion to table any decisions on this. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. And now we will move to our business item for the property tax. Before we get into discussion on the board, Devin, can I ask you to answer 2 questions? So the first of all would be Mr. Wheatley's question about the rainy day fund. And then the second question would be, we had sent out an email and put out there publicly. We were looking at 3 options. Mr. Mann presented 2. Is the third option still a possibility or not? But let's start with the property or the rainy day fund.
We'll start with. Is it on now? So we'll start with the rainy day discussion. So I know that there's a lot of discussion about rainy day funds. Government recommendations are having a fund balance at least 25% of our revenue. to be able to react to certain things, especially at the beginning of the year. If there is a delay in receiving property taxes, if there's any kind of delay in our revenue, the recommendation is to have that 25%. Ours is just lower than 20% currently, so we're not at the suggested percentage, but we're pretty close, but it's taken quite a few years to get there. Let me address one thing. So back in 2008-9, the district was, it was during the economic recession, we had $7.5 million cut from our budget mid-year. So the purpose for that rainy day fund is to be able to react to that without being reactionary. So being able to still run schools the way that they need to be run, and to be able to pay our employees the way that they need to be paid and what their contract states for that year. And then during that year, there was also a lot of discussion about what we needed to do in order to decrease costs, because several of those line items that were cut in that year never came back. So the other thing that rainy day fund can be used for is if there's something that needs to happen, like let's just say in mid-year we have a recommendation to deal with the textbook adoption. Those funds can be used for those one-time purchases. One of the things that's not allowed is to budget fund balance ongoing. So that's one thing that we're not allowed to do, is to budget that for ongoing expenses. But it allows us to be able to respond to market conditions. It allows us to be able to respond to issues that we have. Like this year, we had a significant increase in our health insurance. So we were able to transfer some of those reserves over to our self-insurance fund to be able to pay for those medical costs. So there's a myriad of things that we can use it for. It's a really good idea to have it for those just-in-case times, both in the general fund and in the capital fund, because we can react to some of those emergencies. We have a boiler that goes out, or we have a wall that comes down. You know, those kinds of things we can actually respond to without necessarily trying to get rid of a different expense, and that is necessary also in order to meet the emergency needs. So is that a good explanation for that? Okay, option then, so that was in relation to option one, where we didn't do anything this year. Part of the downside to that was the recovery of the taxes in the second year. So having those rates go up where the amount collected was double. So instead of the $82, it would be $164 for 1 year, which could be a little bit more of a budgetary issue. We felt like this increase, about $82 for a home, an average size home in Provo, was a pretty good compromise as we're looking at what to do going forward. So that was option one. Option two is to do exactly what we've talked about tonight with the county, sending out new notices for the valuation, not necessarily the valuation of homes, but that rate that will be assessed for this year. And then option three was to spread it out, which has more of a danger for manual entry. It also does put a little bit more pressure and doesn't allow us to meet those ongoing needs right now. It would be, we have enough right now in our rainy day fund, but then we are going to have to figure out something that second year. And then we still have the issues of the Dixon property and the Timpview build that's coming up. So those were the three options and kind of some of the pros and cons. Does that answer all of the questions?
So you're saying we could still consider that third option, but it gets a little tricky?
It gets a little bit trickier.
Okay.
Can you speak to the manual entry piece of what you just said, so we understand that better?
Bert can actually respond to that partially as well.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, this option would be that we set the property rate to collect about $2 million, and we pay the other $1.7 million out of our fund balances this year.
Well, how it would work is that third option is essentially the board does nothing. We don't send out a notice. The rate as it stands. And what happens on the tax the tax calculation next year is that change in value becomes part of the Board of Equalization adjustment, And that actually operates off of I made sure I got this clarified with the tax commission this afternoon, so I was giving everyone correct information. But that change in value between what is reported in May and what is reported at the end of December, that difference in value, that becomes a 3-year rolling average. That's why it gets recovered over 3 years. So you would take it out of your fund balance, but then you wouldn't be able to recover your fund balance for 3 years.
So but I think what you're talking about was different than that. You were talking about lowering
the
your
rate.
And I've discussed this with our attorneys. We've discussed it with the tax commission. The tax commission has to approve at the end of the day whatever rate you do. That there's still an approval there. I don't believe that would be legal because we made a mistake. We're correcting the mistake. It's not being opened up for a new discussion. So I think it very likely that were you to do that, the tax commission would say no. Okay. And so then our attorney opinion is that's not an option. And
so
the
option 3.
The option 3 is so you do have 3 options.
That's what I want to understand. But
yes.
the option 3 that we outlined, not actually an option.
It's not an option.
And last week, that was still up in the air.
Right.
The
That's
attorneys
fine.
had not had, when Bert and I talked, the attorneys
had lots of discussions
had not.
And gone through a lot of learning, but I'm pretty confident that is just, it's not an option.
We're in fairly uncharted territory in Utah County. There's really never been this issue. And so once the legal representation, because I was not aware of that either when we talked and put forth the options. And so this is, it's good information.
Yes.
To have.
And I'm sorry it's evolved, but we've spent a lot of time learning. And
that's okay. That's why we just want to clarify tonight.
There are 3 options. They're just not the 3. There's get it now, get it next year all at once, or get it
over the 3 years if we don't get it now.
Those are the options.
Okay. All right. I'm going to open it up to the board members for discussion or additional questions. Okay.
I have one concern about do nothing is that the voucher bill lawsuit ruling could happen at any time. We don't know when that's going to happen. We don't know what the ruling's going to be. And if we end up having to pay the $6,000 of increase in the teacher salary, and we don't have $3.7 million in our fund balance, that is going to be a problem. However, the ruling could come a year from now. We have no idea when that's happening. So that's why I'm nervous about doing nothing, because what if we need that money?
Thank you. Other thoughts?
I agree, Terry. I think for me personally, it just seems like it's best to fix it now.
Something that I was thinking about is I didn't realize we were going to have to recoup this regardless.
Yeah,
this money.
That was new information.
That no matter what, with rainy day funds, regardless, we're going to have to do this. Either it's over 3 years, 1 year, or 2 years. I figure we might as well just keep it low at $80 over 2 years, is my opinion, and not hit them with $164 next year.
Other thoughts? Gina or?
I would agree. I would just agree with what has been said. And I ran on the platform of transparency and let's do what needs to be done. And even if it's hard. And I think this is one of those things. I think in order to, I mean, we're being transparent, and even if we decided to delay it, I think, which is a valid option, I just feel like we need to fix it now rather than put it off and let somebody else fix it later, right? Or have them fix it next year, and then we would double what people are paying next year. And I understand that nobody wants to pay more taxes. I don't want to either, although I do think that this is a huge value. If I sent my kid to private school, I would be paying a lot more than I pay in property taxes, so I try to keep that in mind when I'm writing the check out to the county, right? This is actually a very good deal for me, and I have 2 children who are in the school system in Provo. And so I try to remind myself of that. But my opinion is along the lines of what everybody else says. And it's an unfortunate error, but I do appreciate the county coming out and helping us understand it and doing what needs to be done to rectify the situation. I do have an ask, and that would be when, and this is of the county, when before the notice goes out, could we get our eyes on that just to make sure that before it goes out, so that we can see that? I would love to be able to see that before it goes out so that we can understand what's happening.
Just to maybe help with the messaging.
It'll be very simple.
Okay.
It'll be very simple.
Okay.
Okay.
Postcard.
Thank you. We'd love to, yeah, great. Thank you.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, a couple things that I'm thinking about in this discussion. The first one is, I feel like this conversation has maybe pulled some people in who weren't engaged in this conversation while we were going through our budgeting process back in June, and then preparing for our truth in taxation hearing. And what I'm hearing from people isn't even as much, I mean, this just brought this to a level maybe of consciousness to where they reached out to me, but the concerns I'm hearing are around how we're budgeting in general, how we're spending in general in our district, and that kind of accountability for, like, are we being good stewards with the resources that we have? And I appreciate all of those questions, and I welcome people to come in. I sit on the finance committee, and I myself read all of the documents and ask these questions as well. Anyone interested in that, I would personally love to sit down, and I know how competent our business administrator is to sit down and how open she is to hearing ideas around what, creative ways that we can be good stewards with our resources. It's part of our strategic plan to be really, really transparent around how we're spending money. So if someone's wondering how or why or what money is being spent, please come have that conversation. We try to have them here in public meetings, but we'll always sit down and look at it with you. I know how careful our budgeting process was. And I know the levers that move even when our revenue stays the same. Besides just the levers of inflation, the over 30% increase in the cost of our insurance, which we need to address, a series of significant levers that when we're doing any kind of projects, we all know how much more expensive this year things were than last year. That doesn't mean we just keep passing that buck along to taxpayers. We are reducing costs. We are tightening budgets. We can show that to people. We aren't just going to keep saying, oh, shoot, now we need to ask the taxpayers for more money. And this is not what's happening here. This is not us saying all of a sudden now we're asking you for more money than we asked you for 2 weeks ago. We set a careful budget, mindful of our needs to keep good teachers in classrooms and provide the best possible education based on the values of Provo City, which values small neighborhood schools, dual language immersion programs in those schools, and a lot of other things that we're looking hard at right now with all of our programming. So please engage in that conversation some more with us tonight. I personally liked option 3 because I liked us splitting the difference, so to speak, with the cost, with the taxpayers. Personally, I might have had a different opinion on that rate for our truth in taxation versus how much we would put in towards that teacher raise that we really need to have right now, that I'm not sorry we're having for not just our teachers, but also our principals and people. We want them to stay in Provo and teach in Provo. I might have made some decisions differently, but given where we are right now, I think the right thing to do has to be to correct it now and to be grateful for all of the safeties, things that will go into making sure we don't have this situation again, but then also making sure that we're continuing to look. We're not just like, oh, good, now we have the money. We are continuing to look at how to be good stewards with your taxpayer dollars and looking hard and having open, you've heard them, conversations about the things we hold dear in our education system and seeing what we can and can't pay for reasonably right now.
Okay, thank you. I just want to share my thoughts on this. First of all, I'm grateful for all the community members who are here tonight. I know we also have a lot watching online. And those who've engaged over the weekend, I mean, we sent out an email. We got it out as soon as we could, but it was on a Friday afternoon of Labor Day weekend. And
Within 2 minutes, I had 2
we had a
emails.
few people rise back immediately, which I appreciate. And then as it got out on social media and things, just people have engaged, and I appreciate that. And out of I started keeping tabs on all of the emails and comments, and I was at a PTA meeting today. Out of the 30 people who gave input on the options, this is when we thought we had 3 options. Only 2 out of those 30 said, just wait. And that was when we thought that the district would just eat this year's 3.7 million, right? I wonder if they would have answered differently knowing that it would be added upon next year, right? So I feel really grateful for all the input because I think that helps us make our decision better too, because we represent you as a community as well. And thank you to so many people who are showing support and wanting to support our schools and our students, and I appreciate that. It does sound like we're ready to make a motion to go ahead and approve the rate that will bring in the correct amount. So it is the rate that is in that last column on that chart on page 4 that Terry pointed out. But do we have a motion to approve the property tax rate of 0.007305? Is there anything else that needs to be a part of that motion, Devin? That was
Exactly
good?
right.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the new rate of 0.007305 for the new county rate. Is that correct?
So
Yes,
that language
that
work?
is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Motion made by Board Member Hall. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice President Hales. Okay, is there any more discussion on our motion? I do want to just add the thank yous I was giving earlier. Thank you to the county and the people of the district, everyone, I'm sure the city people too, spent their Labor Day weekend working on this, and I appreciate all the hard work going into it. So.
And thank you to Mike Rohn for
Yes, and thank you, Mike Rohn,
finding
for
the
finding
problem.
it. I think this is a better solution than if it had been found after the fact and it would have had to be spread out, corrected later, right? So, all right, no other discussion? Then we'll go ahead and take a vote. All in favor with aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Do we have a motion to adjourn our business meeting?
I move that we adjourn our business meeting.
Okay, motion made by Board Member Boyce. We are adjourned, and our next meeting is next Tuesday, September 9th.